Without objection.
Now, Madam President, today there are thousands of American service members in Afghanistan defending us from terrorist organizations and their sponsors. They are joined by service members and support personnel from allied nations and security partners. Each one of these lives is precious to a nation and to a family somewhere. Each one of us here in this chamber recognizes the solemn duty we have to our service members. So we're all concerned about media reports that the Russian government or its proxies has been offering bounties on the lives of American soldiers to Taliban-linked fighters in Afghanistan. The Associated Press has reported that the U.S. is investigating whether any Americans died as a result of Russian bounties, and is particularly focused on a 2019 attack that killed 3 U.S. Marines, including one young man from Locust Valley, Long Island, New York, and another who worked as a firefighter in the FDNY, the great FDNY, for 15 years. On behalf of my constituents and the American people, I demand answers. If, in fact, Putin and his cronies have been sponsoring the murder of American and coalition forces in Afghanistan, there is no question there should be swift and severe consequences. But unlike every previous administration I've ever worked with, the Trump administration has been shockingly weak-kneed when it comes to authoritarian leaders like Putin. This administration appears unwilling to even acknowledge the gravity of the situation, unwilling to even express concern about these rumors and commit to investigating them. The shifting explanations from the White House about when and how the president learned about these reports has only added to the confusion and concern here on Capitol Hill. First, the president tweeted, "Nobody briefed me or told me about the reports." That's what he said. Nobody briefed him or told him. Then the president hinted he was aware of these reports, but that it didn't rise to the level of an official briefing. The White House press secretary repeatedly denied that the president had been briefed. And then last night, the Associated Press reported that President Trump received intelligence about these potential bounties as early as spring of last year. The spring of last year. Out of all of those different explanations, the best case for the president is that he doesn't read insensitive intelligence reports. You know, that's his job. It's been 5 days since media reports informed the world of Putin's alleged bounty program. What has the president done? He hasn't condemned it. He hasn't told service members and their families he'll make sure this alleged program is exposed and ended. He hasn't directed any action against Putin and his cronies whatsoever. He's done absolutely nothing. Nothing. As the commander-in-chief, the president has no more serious and solemn duty than to do right by the Americans in uniform who protect our country. He's directly responsible and must be held accountable for the well-being of American service members who have volunteered to put themselves in harm's way to protect our country. The least President Trump could do is promise to get to the bottom of these allegations and hold Putin and his cronies accountable for their actions. Even that seems beyond the administration's capabilities. In the short term, we need an agreement from the administration to conduct an immediate all-members briefing on the reports that Russia placed bounties on U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Senators need to hear directly from CI Director Haspel on these reports as soon as possible. Now on another matter. The number of new COVID-19 cases is accelerating at an alarming rate through several states, and the economic effects of the pandemic continues to hound American families and businesses across the country. Over one-fifth of the workforce has requested unemployment assistance. 1/5. In 1 month, the expanded unemployment benefits we passed in the CARES Act will expire. For millions of Americans, another rent payment is due tomorrow, and eviction protections will run out for these tenants in a few weeks. School districts are preparing for the fall without resources or the guidance they need to reopen safely. Localities are preparing for the 2020 general election and need federal resources to hold safe elections. Even the popular and bipartisan Paycheck Protection Program runs out of lending authority today, with over $130 billion remaining funds. while so many small businesses continue to struggle. They have $130 billion sitting there. The program runs out today. Our Republican colleagues are doing nothing. There are so many urgent priorities that require our attention here, but the Senate Republican majority has been ignoring them. Instead of working in a bipartisan way to reform police departments across the country, Senate Republicans dropped an inadequate partisan bill on the floor. After it failed, the Republicans didn't seem eager to start the bipartisan negotiations we need to get progress back on track. Instead of spending the last 45 days working with Democrats on legislation to address the public health and economic crises Americans are facing due to the coronavirus pandemic, Republicans have just sat on their hands. In fact, Leader McConnell seems dead set on delaying any COVID relief until after the July 4th holiday. And even then, he says he wants to assess the conditions in the country before taking action. We just can't wait for our Republican colleagues to wake up to the reality in this country. People are losing their homes. People are not being fed. People are losing their jobs. Small businesses are closing. COVID is spreading. The Republican majority does nothing. It sits on its hands. The best it says, in the voice of the leader, let's assess the situation. What more do they need to assess? The American people don't need an assessment. They want action, action. It's amazing. Now, so we cannot wait, the country cannot wait for our Republican colleagues to wake up to the reality. So Senate Democrats are forcing action on the floor this week on a number of crucial issues. Last night, Democrats asked our colleagues to pass emergency funding for state, local, and tribal governments who are finalizing their budgets today and may be forced to cut vital services and lay off teachers, firefighters, other public employees. Senate Republicans, however, have blocked our bill. Hopefully, our Republican colleagues won't be so hasty to reject our attempts to start work on several other urgent priorities this week. Today, Democrats will come to the floor to ask this body to take up legislation on safe elections, led by my colleague, Senator Klobuchar. Education funding, led by my colleague, Senator Murray. And funding for our nursing homes, championed by Senator Casey. All three will ask unanimous consent requests. Will our Republican friends block them? Block action once again as the country suffers, as the economy continues to decline, as more people get sick, more people die? These are not abstract issues, not at all. This is about parents making sure their kids safely continue their education. This is about making sure elderly relatives are healthy and safe and properly cared for. This is about making sure when it comes time to vote, every American can exercise the franchise without worrying about getting sick. The need for these pieces of legislation is beyond dispute. Most Republicans back home, when asked, should we do these things, want us to do them. We have only a few days to go before the Senate adjourns for the next state work period. And if Republicans continue to block reasonable attempts at passing COVID legislation, they'll have to go home and explain why to their constituents. Americans are tired of waiting for the Republican Senate to, quote, feel the urgency of acting immediately, unquote. We have a chance tonight to accomplish what should have been done months ago and pass three important bills to ensure our schools, our elections, and our nursing homes get the support they so desperately need. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.